Hey, Councilmember, I think you're muted.
Okay. Let's go to gallery view. Let's see, I've got Joe is here. I've got Jay is here. I've got Cindy and Kristen. They're not on the committee, but I've got 3 on the committee. So it looks like I've got a quorum. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started then.
Sounds
Let me
good.
get to the right view.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, good morning and welcome to, of course, the Utility Committee. We are going to be having a discussion today on people's energy bills. And that's going to be kind of the main discussion of today. And we've got some additional important items to discuss related to that as well that are on the agenda. But just so that everyone's aware of how we are operating today's meeting, we are obviously going to be doing this via Zoom because we are doing everything that we can to stay focused on the COVID restrictions that are out there. We want to make sure that everyone stays safe. So if anyone has any comments that they want to submit on any of the agenda items, I want to remind the public that they can go to council.nola.gov and they can submit comments there. So the way the run of show that'll go down right now is Aaron will read the agenda in full, and then we will take a short 15-minute recess so that anyone can submit additional public comments, and we will come back and begin with the agenda. So with that, Aaron, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, council members. The agenda for today's meeting is as follows. Item 1, roll call. Item 2, discussion of January bill increases. Entergy New Orleans LLC will give a presentation explaining the cause or causes of recent bill increases. Item 3, a presentation, lack of advertising by utility and telecommunications companies on Black-owned media outlets. Wendell Pierce will present on the importance of advertising on Black-owned media outlets. Item 4, Resolution R21, suspension of disconnects and late fees. The committee will consider a resolution directing Entergy New Orleans LLC to continue the suspension of disconnects for non-payment and late fees for residential customers. Item 5, adjournment.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So with that, let's take a quick 15-minute recess and we will be right back.
All right, everyone, we're back in about 2 minutes.
Hey, Wendell.
Hello.
I can't hear you. I think you might be on mute, Wendell.
No, I'm unmuted.
I can hear him, council member. Is it not making it in chambers?
Now I can hear him. Yep. Hey,
Can you hear
Wendell.
me?
Yep, I got you now. Just so you know, Wendell, it's going to be probably a bit before we get to you.
I understand.
So I just didn't want you to, you know.
I'm here for the duration.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank
Aaron,
you for
how
the
are we on
opportunity.
time as far as our recess?
We are done.
Oh, we're done. Fantastic. Hey, Clint, how are you?
Doing great. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. All right, let's see. All right, got Joe, Cindy. All right, Aaron, let's start. Let's go ahead and start back up. Why don't you go ahead and call roll so we make sure that we have a quorum to get started.
Sounds good. Councilmember Moreno, present. Councilmember Giarrusso, present. Councilmember Banks, present. Councilmember Brissette. Councilmember Moreno, we have 3 members. We have a quorum.
Perfect. I also want to acknowledge that Councilmember Nguyen and Councilmember Palmer, that they are both on this Zoom as well for this committee meeting. All right, some quick agenda cleanup real quick. I'm going to take item number 4 after item number 2, just for, kind of consistency purposes. So just so everyone's aware of that. But with that being said, I'm now going to go to item number 2, which is a discussion of the January bill increases. I'm going to have just a few opening comments to make, and then I'll turn it over to Entergy. I think more than anything, I'm going to have questions, but I think we all know that really a lot of Entergy customers were caught by surprise with the power bills that they received. And in some cases, actually many cases, it seems like, at least, what my office received, that bills doubled or even tripled from last month. And of course, with everything that's happening these days with the pandemic and people struggling with work, and some people have even lost their jobs, these, surprise increases really couldn't have come at a tougher time. There are so many people, as we know in our city, who are really struggling to make ends meet right now. So since these bills hit, of course, we have just received so many questions. Questions around the recently deployed AMI meters. We have received a variety of different questions about the reliability of Entergy's Grand Gulf nuclear plant and what impacts the fact that that plant has been down so much has had on bills. But it seems that where there is the most amount of confusion happens to be around usage levels. And that, of course, means the amount of power that customers are using. There are questions about, is this one of the highest usage levels that we have seen in recent years? Back to the AMI piece, are these readings accurate? And if these readings are accurate, when the company started to see in early to mid-December that usage could be soaring, why was the public and council not warned so that customers could start using less energy? So it's clear that there is something off with these bills. It's clear that something did not go right. And now we're here to find the answers and prevent this from happening again. We're also here to make sure that this does not lead to someone's power being disconnected because the bill double or 3 times what they expected has now blown their budget. So this morning, we're going to have presentations from Entergy New Orleans on last month's bills, along with additional analysis from our utility advisors. We're also going to have a presentation from our advisors about what's happening with the Grand Gulf Nuclear Station so that the public is aware of what has been happening with the plant and the potential impacts that that plant being down is having on power bills. So with that, I will start with bringing on the folks from Entergy New Orleans with their presentation on the cause of recent bill increases.
Madam Chair, can I say something before they get started? Yeah, I think the point you're making too is I'm curious about the communication piece of all of this, which is the idea that people are home more during COVID. If usage is going up, how they're notified, what's going on to give them notification. And the whole idea behind AMI is that people can see at energy and otherwise that usage is up. So how residents can start notifying themselves that something has happened because of increased weather. That happened this month as well. I think that's a big piece of it, is making sure people know what's going on in real time too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Giarrusso. Any other council members want to make any comments before we turn it over to Entergy? All right, seeing and hearing none. So with that, the Entergy folks, if you want to begin your presentation, you are welcome to do so. Aaron, are they on?
Yes, ma'am. They should be able to share their screen, whoever is going to guide them through the presentation. Sandra, if you're speaking, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Still can't hear her.
No, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian, you are muted.
Brian, try unmuting yourself. There you go.
No, did you do the join computer audio when you logged in? Brian, we cannot hear you. Brian,
hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we have you.
Great. Everybody mute, please. Sorry about that. So I'm getting some feedback. Can you turn it down? All right, so I'm very sorry about that, Councilmember. Thank you for inviting us here to give us an opportunity to address January bills. Today I have with me Sandra Miller, who is the Vice President of Customer Service for E&O. Ms. Alyssa Maurice Anderson, who is the Director of Regulatory. Keith Wood, who is the Manager of Resource Planning. Mr. Yeager Smith, who is an attorney and nuclear engineer. And then last but not least, as many of you know, this will be my last meeting in the capacity as VP of Regulatory. And we have Ms. Becky Knox, who is going to be taking my place, and she'll introduce herself in just a minute. And so the team will be providing a more detailed presentation in just a minute, but we want customers to know that we take your bill complaint seriously, obviously, and we invite you to call us if you have any questions about your bills and you have a high bill complaint. We haven't received many of those calls. So if you're listening to this presentation and it still doesn't add up, give us a call. We want to hear from you. If you're listening to this presentation and you need help with paying your bill to get on a payment plan or anything like that, give us a call. We want to hear from you, 1-800-ENTITY. And so we looked at this situation, and what we found is that the primary reason for the January bill increases is customer consumption. Consumption increased 40% for electric and 120% for gas for a typical customer. And this was driven by weather that was colder than the weather that was included under the December bills, and also colder than the weather at this time last year. And so the team will explain those findings, but they will also, just picking up on some things that some of the council members have already said, they will also explain some of the tools that are available for customers to be more energy efficient, and to take more control of their own bills. And so now, you know, we really do understand that January bills are coming at a time when some of our customers are really, really struggling. And so since the start of this pandemic, we've partnered with this council and with the New Orleans community, who are also, you know, our family, our friends, our neighbors. It became one of the first utilities in the country to suspend disconnects, and we kept that going for nearly a year now. We helped the council to create the Council Cares program, which is it's a tremendous program. It gives customers $400 in bill credit, and we successfully credited over $5 million to customers. We deferred a $30 million rate increase, and that was a big deal because it resulted in more money in the pockets of our customers and families at a time when they really need it. And then last but not least, we created these customer service options, these enhanced customer service options, like extended payment programs, where you can extend your past balance for really, 12 months if you need it. And then a levelized billing program, which allows customers to create more of a consistent bill throughout the year, so you won't see these spikes like you saw in January. We have Sandra Miller. She'll talk about those programs and many more. And so finally, I just want to say that as a leader in this company who is from this community, I'm proud of these efforts. And there are many I didn't list. And I know we're going to continue to do everything we can to help and to keep, but keeping in mind that part of that means maintaining the financial health of the company so that we can continue to play a role in the economic recovery of New Orleans, investing capital and providing jobs and opportunities, et cetera. And so that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Becky Knox for introductions, and then turn it over to the team for a more detailed presentation on January bills.
Good morning, council members. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all, albeit virtually. Just a little bit about my background. I have probably 20 plus years working with regulated utilities, both on the electric and gas side, as well as the water sector. My experience focuses on state and federal regulatory and legislative activities. I'm sorry, my camera went down. Federal and state legislative and regulatory activities, as well as customer service activities around LIHEAP, customer solutions, technologies, electrification, as well as smart communities. So I'm really excited to be here, and I look forward to working collaboratively with you and your staff to ensure that Entergy continues its mission of providing clean, affordable, and reliable energy to the residents and businesses of New Orleans. So I look forward to meeting you all in person, hopefully sooner than later. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alyssa Maurice Anderson to continue with our presentation. So thank you all very much.
I'd like to start off this morning by expressing our understanding of how difficult the pandemic has been on all of us. And many are out of work, and if they
Hey, Brian, who's doing the presentation?
Okay, listen. Can you unmute? Can you hear us now, council member?
Keep talking, please. It's hard to hear you.
Okay, it doesn't look like those numbers will unmute. Are they unmuted? All right. Everybody else mute, please. Okay. Go ahead, just use my phone. You're on mute?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
So I'll start from the top again. Good morning, council members. I'd like to start this morning by expressing our understanding of how difficult the pandemic has been on all of us. Many are out of work, and if they're working, they're doing so under very different conditions, trying to stay safe. And you and your families are trying to get by on a fraction of what you did before. With all of those things top of mind, it's easy to lose perspective that through the hard work of this council and the company over the past 12 months, we've managed to keep rates below both the national and regional averages. We have some of the lowest rates in the country, lower than states like Hawaii and Texas. And so it's disturbing during these hard times when we see our electricity bills go up substantially. And it's understandable that you would want an explanation why. We're here to provide some of those answers for you today.
Do you mind speaking up a little bit?
And you may recall 2 months ago when a lot of us were anxiously looking forward to the holidays, that we were
Can you speak up a little bit more?
talking about potentially looking at a white Christmas. It seemed like the weather folks talked to us about having a white Christmas for a number of weeks, but it wound up that we only had cold weather during that time. What we were left with were colder than normal temperatures and colder than November of this year and colder than December and November of last year. In fact, slide 4 shows us just how much colder it was. In December, we saw 272 heating degree days, and that was over and above the 43 heating degree days that we saw in November. What are heating degree days? Well, that's an indication of exactly how much demand is placed on the system in order for customers to make their homes comfortable. Heating degree days refers to how much heat you would be using in order to get the temperature up to 65 degrees if it's below an average temperature of 65 degrees outside. And so in December, as I said, we saw 272 heating degree days, 43 heating degree days in November of this year. And then you can see that it was also colder than last year, where we saw 196 heating degree days in December.
Let me ask you.
We saw substantial increases in both electric and gas usage on typical monthly bills.
Ryan, can you stop her for a second?
41% for electric and 122% for gas usage. I'd like to talk a little bit about how that flows through on our bills. Here on slide 6, you can see on the left-hand side of this bill mock-up, the portion that shows the electric gas usage at the top, and then the gas usage at the bottom left. We've circled those, and there you can see this customer's bill was higher than the previous month, largely due to increased gas usage of around 51 CCF.
Ask the council member if she had a question.
Council
Yeah.
member, do you have a question?
Yeah, go back a couple slides. And go back to the heating days, please, which is slide number 4. If you can't go back, I can go ahead and ask the question. So on slide number 4, where you said you had 272 on the heating days. So when was the last time that numbers were that high?
That's not something that I can answer sitting here today, council member. I couldn't say.
Okay, so we don't know when was the last time that we hit. I mean, if this conversation is about usage, right? Then I think it's really important that we have some type of historical perspective on usage levels then, instead of just looking at, what it looked like in 2019 in November and December. So I think it's really important to figure out when was the last time that we had this level of heating days. But you don't have that information?
No, ma'am, I do not. We can get that for you.
Yeah, I think that would be really important. The other piece too, go to slide 5 now, please. So this shows that that the residential customers' usage in December increased by at least the average, roughly 41% on the electric piece. What was the overall load increase though that you saw?
When you say overall load increase, you're referring to the net area load?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
You're referring to the net area load?
Yeah, I mean, I would like that. I don't believe I've seen those numbers. I think from what I saw from our advisors is that they're apparently, potentially a 20% increase in load. And so I'm just trying to.
That's correct.
That's correct. So so can you explain if there's a 20% increase in load, why is then the average customer's usage up 41%?
So with respect to the electric portion of the bill, council member, a portion of the amounts that we would be seeing in terms of increased net area load would be due to customer usage. In addition to that, we also, from a gas perspective, use gas to generate electricity. And so there is an increase from that perspective. And then also, you'll see at the bottom of the slide, we have the increases from a gas perspective as well. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or if there's a more specific question that you have.
Hey, Aaron, is Joe Rogers on the call?
Yes, he is.
Hey, Joe, can you chime in on the load presentation, or at least some information that you sent me yesterday on load? I'm just trying to understand what it all means. I mean, if load increased 20% and then, overall, it looks like the average customer bills increased by 41%. I'm just not quite understanding that. If Joe, can you chime in? Do you mind?
Yes, Chair. Can everyone hear me, first of all?
Yes, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, if I look at the net area load for Eno, it increased by about 20% between the November and December period. What we're looking at, what Entergy is describing here, can possibly be explained by some compounding effects. And one, there was a 20% increase in kilowatt hours. But we also understand that there were more billing days in the period. So you have the compounding effect of the 4 extra billing days, which I think is roughly 17%, compounded with the 20% increase. for a, kind of an overall increase. The other thing we need to understand, I think, and what might also be contributing to what Entergy is showing, is that residential load, as compared to, say, an industrial or a process load, is more subject to variation with respect to heat. And so accordingly, while you got a 20% increase for the overall system, perhaps more than that 20% increase actually went to residential. And so that, I guess, in my mind, if you're asking me to explain why Entergy's numbers are higher than the 20% increase we saw in the input, that would be my best explanation.
Well, and council member, if I might add, two additional factors. This is the average bill. So of course you have some customers seeing higher usage and some customers seeing lower usage, and it depends on the allocation among the various residential customers, exactly what level of increase would be seen. And so the 20%, that 20% increase in net area load that we saw on a company-wide basis would not necessarily correlate to the individual bills because of the allocations that are made to factor those, to develop those rates and calculate those rates that are ultimately sent to customers. Additionally, the billing cycles that the customers are on will capture a different period in time from the December month's usage. So with those variations, you will also see variations in usage that contribute to that average change that you're seeing as well. Hopefully that helps.
So do you have calculations as to how many of your customers saw more than a 50% increase in their utility bills?
We do not have the calculations of how many saw more than a 50% increase.
Because I think that, and back to what Councilmember Geruso and I have been talking about, it's really on the, I think there needs to be a better overall kind of alert system. I know that we're going to get into the conversation of, that you can set usage alerts, but I think that, the company, if it was seeing a certain number, but I don't know if you monitor this, a large number of your customers starting to trend toward having bills that are higher than, the 50% higher than their average bills, that should trigger some type of alert. I know that you allow for people to opt into your usage alerts, but maybe it should change that we should allow people to opt out of it so that people can better understand what their usage looks like so that we don't get into this situation again down the road. And I guess my question also in this is, when did you all start to realize that usage levels were really trending upwards in December?
Yeah, and I'll take that one. Can you hear me, Councilmember?
Sure. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so the way it works is, load really fluctuates throughout the month. And so, our Decembers, are really not consistent. And so usually you'll have a cold month, and then next week, maybe it's a little bit warmer. And so it's really hard for us to predict what the ultimate usage within a month is going to be until we get that data really at the end of the month. I will say to your first question, with respect to the capabilities of us alerting customers, et cetera, we just finished the AMI deployment in New Orleans in December, and we're starting to really cut over some of those communication networks. It's going to allow us to access more of the functionality of AMI. So while we really don't have that capability to do that today, in a very short amount of time, we're going to be developing that capability, doing some test cases, doing some pilots to try to set those proactive alerts to where, customers can either sign up or we can sign them up, and there'll be an email trigger when they reach a certain load threshold.
What did you say you don't have the ability to do right now, Brian?
In terms of proactively monitoring customers' accounts and sending them alerts without them actually signing up for the capability. We're sort of in the early stages of developing that capability right now. But as AMI begins to get cut over, it begins to develop, we start to access the capabilities and build on AMI, we'll have that capability going into the future.
Yeah, and I mean, and also with AMI, as you all are able to get real-time information as to what's happening with your customers, you know, I can presume that in the first 10 days, if there were 29 heating days, I think that's what the presentation said, of consistent heating days in December, I mean, I would have just assumed that after the first 10 days that the company would have seen that usage was high. Were there any type of proactive measures to alert the media, let anyone know that, hey, you know, these usage levels could be really high this month, you know, sign up for Energy Smart, text alerts, text alerts, email alerts saying, please sign up for this usage alert system? Because I have to tell you, I mean, I don't think we've had one person who has called us who has been aware of this usage alert system that you all have. I mean, I know that we received a while back in a snippet of a presentation the possibility of this happening, but I certainly have not seen it promoted by any means. So within the first 10 days, let's say of December, when we had, let's say at least 9 or 8 consistent heating days, what type of alert went out to your customers, just as a friendly reminder to work hard to conserve as much energy as you can?
Yeah, so again, it's really hard for us because we get into, trying to predict, what the weather will be and what, how many people customers are going to have at the house for Christmas, for example, and, what their usage pattern is going to be throughout the month. It's really hard for us to predict on an individual customer basis what that usage pattern is going to be. And so the thing we try to do is equip customers with the tools that they need so that they can kind of take more control over their own bills. And so that's going to fall to things like energy efficiency. It's going to fall to things like, these customer alerts that they can sign up for. And then as AMI begins to be more active, they can log in and look at their usage patterns and kind of adapt accordingly. But right now, we don't receive that aggregate load data really until we read the meter. And that's, right now, presently, it's once a billing cycle. And then following the month, after the month is closed, we receive that aggregate billing data, and then we kind of see how load acted for that particular month. I think at AMI, you had a number of great suggestions, in terms of being more proactive and really getting out and educating customers as to how they can use the tools we have to take more control of their own bills. That's going to be essential going forward. And we are actually, obviously we'll adopt some of those recommendations in terms of education for the tools that customers have at their disposal.
And Brian, I'm certainly not asking you to be a meteorologist, by any means. I think one thing though that I think that the company should put together is some type of trigger where you now need to go and alert the public that you're seeing a usage trend. So, if whether it's in a hot month in August or whether it's super cold in December, if you are seeing, already 10 days of consistent weather upping usage, that this needs to be some type of news release, some type of, additional communication to the council, something so that the public can be aware that it's like, okay, there's a potential possibility for my bill to be higher. So let me do everything that I possibly can to change my habits to reduce my usage. I will also continue to follow up on the usage alerts. I get it that you can't do it now, but I am requesting and urging the company now, I'm requesting, because I'm hoping that you all will do it, is to find a process as to how customers will have to opt out of these types of usage alerts. I think that there is a way, and I'm happy to provide our advisors to assist you with this, where customers will be alerted if they are, moving toward having a bill that is, more than 50% of their average usage. There's got to be some type of trigger to let your customers know. I mean, over a phone, over email, over whatever, so that habits can be changed. I also think that this is a really important time for you all to be sending email and text alerts about Energy Smart. Still I can't even tell you how many calls and emails we received into my office about bills doubling and tripling. And so often your customers had no idea about Energy Smart and free assessments that the company would be able to do. So I think that needs to be pushed out a lot more by the company as well.
It's an important piece. These are really important ideas. And look, ultimately, we understand that these tools are especially important at a time when all of our customers are really struggling. And I think with the deployment of AMI having been completed in December, and that is going to allow us to take that platform and build some of these technologies that you're discussing to a much greater extent. And so in the months to come, you'll see us trying to pilot some of those very things that you just mentioned, which is, hey, if my usage is nearing 50% of my bill last month and I'm only in the first week, let's set a trigger to email that customer or text that customer. Both of those platforms are on the table. And so I guess I'll just end with, yes, we agree with you. AMI is going to enable us to do a lot more of that, and you'll see that come. That technology rolled out in the next few months.
And Brian, I have to ask this, and maybe it's the former reporter in me asking this question, but how are you ensuring that the AMI meters are working accurately, and how are you positive that your current calculations on usage are correct?
So the process with AMI is that when we actually go out and install the meter, we test that meter in a lab at Entergy before it ever goes out to the customer's house. And so, there are meters that we reject, we send back to the manufacturer, they send us new ones, they never make their way onto a customer's house. So then when we go out, we plug that meter in, we actually know that we validated, we've tested the meter at Entergy. When we plug it into the customer's house, we validate it and test it again so that we can have quality assurance that the meter is accurate and that it's picking up the actual load that the customer is using.
So you're confident in the AMI meters and the AMI system, and you don't believe that these double and triple bills can in any way be attributed to some type of error in the AMI meters?
We don't think that, no. We're confident in the AMI meters. There are a few cases where when we go out and plug the new AMI meter in, that it increases the billing days that are in a particular customer's bill. And so, for example, with the legacy meters, if a customer had billing days in their bill that was greater than 35, for example, the computer would automatically trigger those billing days back to the number 33. And so what we're finding is, as we were switching out the meters, the AMI meters in December, well, really throughout the year, this could have been the case. The mechanism that we have to contain those billing days was overridden because we put a new meter at the house, and there's really no way to avoid that. These were very, very, very limited instances, council member, and that's why I would encourage you, if you see something that's out of the ordinary. It's not in line with what we described today. You look at your usage on the bill and nothing seems out of line, give us a call and we'll take a look at your particular case. It may be one of these very, very few cases where we change the meter at your house and it triggered more billing days on your bill. It's still your actual usage. You actually use that amount. It's just more billing days on your bill than you would typically see.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I'll allow for the presentation to continue. I think we're on page 7. I think is where we were.
Yes, Councilmember Moreno, I was just getting ready to wrap up the discussion around usage. Usage drove the large portion of the increases in the bills that we saw in January. However, there were some other factors that played a smaller role in the increase in the bill. Brian has mentioned one, and that is the extended number of billing days that are on a customer's bill. And again, I would encourage if that top left-hand corner of the bill says more than 35 days, customers definitely should give us a call so that we can review the bill with them and potentially make adjustments. In addition, we saw in the previous month's FAC, the December FAC, an exceptionally low rate. That rate was the lowest we've seen in 25 years. And so when you compare that to the rate that we saw on January bills, it can seem a bit stark. And so when you're looking at something that is exceptionally low because there were certain credits and it was artificially low, it makes the January factor look higher. Additionally, as part of that fuel adjustment, we saw a 12% increase in the price of natural gas that's used to both generate electricity and heat homes. Did you have a question?
Real quick. Yeah, I have a quick question. So on the natural gas with the 12% increase, the council allows for Entergy to hedge so that, you all can buy at a certain price, and then if should there be larger increases in gas prices, then it won't have a drastic impact on the customers. So why didn't hedging work here?
Well, we typically hedge in a systematic way, council member. We don't try to beat the market. We hedge a certain percentage. We're authorized to hedge a certain percentage. And we don't try to observe changes in the market to quote unquote beat the market, as I was saying. So it's really a set percentage per month that we inject
On the gas side.
for storage basis as it relates to natural gas.
On the gas
So
side.
what's that percentage? So 12% increase isn't high enough?
Well, again, we hedge on the gas side for the gas business, not necessarily for the electric business. But the 12% increase is something that we saw market fluctuation. But again, we're not looking at market pricing. What we're looking at is systematically injecting an amount for storage purposes so that if the prices do increase, that we can withdraw the amounts that are in storage. But that is something that is based on prior usage, prior years' experience, and we don't monitor the market rates themselves in order to make those purchases. We make them at the same time each month.
Well, and I would just add, because I think you can think about it very simply in that we hedge 25% of our gas business. And so when you look at the other 75% that we don't hedge, we're still exposed to these 12% increases like that. And so we're not hedging anything on the electric side. It's all on the gas side. But then even on the gas side, we're only hedging 25%. So with the 75% that's unhedged, you still have market exposure, if that makes sense, Councilman.
Mm-hmm. Joe, I saw you take yourself off of mute. Did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, a couple things. on the hedging. The hedging relates to the gas bill and not the electric bill. That's number one. And number two, so that would have an impact on the 120% increase and not the other. And, you know, the typical, they do a programmatic hedge during the summer months for withdrawal during the winter months. One of the other things that you know, comes into play with respect to your question on hedging here is the December PGA is excuse me, purchase gas adjustment is based on a operating month 2 months prior, and that is typically not a hedging month. Usually the hedging months are occur later in you know, December, so you would see it in your February PGA.
Gotcha. Thank you, Joe. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. And so following up on the 12% increase in the price of natural gas, I would just reiterate that that increase in cost affects the cost to generate electricity that we purchase to fuel our plants, as well as to generate electricity to generate heat in your homes, along with the gas systems that you would have in your homes. The other two issues with the FAC is that we saw maintenance outages at our Grand Gulf and Union stations, which Keith Wood will address and go into a little bit of additional detail in just a moment. We also saw less of a credit in our purchase power adjustment, which is normally a credit on our customer bills. That reduction was related to the fact that we started recovering the New Orleans solar station costs. It is the first utility scale solar installation in the city. And then we also had the expiration of a corporate restructuring credit that had provided $15 million over 3 years to customers.
Just
Those items.
real quick on the NOS piece, though, I think that's only like $1 per like 1,000 kilowatts or something like that. Joe, what's the NOS cost on an average bill?
Well, the NOS cost you won't see on your actual bill. It's part of the PPCR, the rider PPCR, and it'll tend to increase that credit that you're getting from the PPCR. But my recollection is that for about 1,000 kilowatt hour typical residential user, the impact of NOS was roughly $1.29.
$1.29. Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that solar facility, that it was only costing an additional roughly $1 on a bill. Thank you, ma'am.
That is correct, council member. But in addition to that, the restructuring credit and its expiration reduced the credit that was on customer bills for a combined amount of approximately $2.35. And so with the increases that we saw to the fuel adjustment clause and the purchase power adjustment, those two increases account for about $15 maximum on a typical 1,000 kilowatt hour bill. And so we just wanted to make clear that to the extent that customers were seeing amounts beyond that, it would be associated with usage. And when you increase your usage, it affects all portions of the bill. So finally, we'd like to just mention that the primary drivers of the higher bills were colder weather and, to lesser of an extent, the fuel adjustment clause and purchase power. The good news is that the fuel adjustment clause for our February bills is down 21%. And of course, usage will affect how it ultimately appears on your bills. But the factor is at least down to have the bills moderate a bit more. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Keith Wood, who is going to address the outages that contributed to the higher fuel adjustment clause, as well as cover some aspects of Energy Smart that may assist customers with reducing their usage and thus better managing their bills. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Good morning, council members. Keith Wood.
Good morning.
I'm the Senior Manager for Resource Planning here at Energy New Orleans. Can y'all hear me okay?
Hear you good. Yes.
Great, thank you. So as Ms. Maurice Anderson mentioned, obviously when we have maintenance or improvement outages at the generators, that can have an impact on the fuel adjustment clause and can then translate into an effect on customer rates. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the outages that were taken at Union Power 1 and at Grand Gulf in November. And just as a preliminary matter, I'd like to say that we obviously have times where we're going to be able to plan for maintenance outages at a generator. We can do that well in advance and coordinate that with MISO. And there are going to be other times when we have emerging issues that require that we take an outage and deal with the matter right then. And so, you know, in either case, we're trying to make sure that we keep the generators operating as well as we possibly can to keep costs low for our customers. So turning first to the outage at Union Power. As everybody is aware, I think we own one of 4 generators at the Union Power Station up in Arkansas, and we own Union Power 1. And all 4 of the units up there have made plans to install emergency backup diesel generators, 1.75 megawatt generators, to make sure that they would provide equipment protection in the case of loss of auxiliary power to the station. The station draws auxiliary power from the grid through the substation downstream. And so this outage was planned and was executed starting in late October into late November and completed so that the emergency diesel generator would be online to give that auxiliary backup power. If there are no questions on that one, I'll go ahead and move on to Grand Gulf. And just to provide some background here on the outage that went on in November, I'd like to back up a bit to the spring refueling outage. Last year, spring 2020, we had a refueling outage at Grand Gulf. And we take these every 24 months to refuel the plant and to do maintenance and improvement work at the facility. During the spring 2020 refueling outage, we had a major complex project to install a new turbine control system at the plant. This is a project that was actually previewed for the Utility Committee at a briefing in May of 2019 when a team from Grand Gulf gave an update to the committee. This was a major piece of work that was necessary in order to replace the existing turbine control system that was still original from the construction of the plant. And so as the spring 2020 refueling outage was planned, it was planned to take a longer outage than normal in order to perform this additional major piece of capital work. Following the installation of the turbine control system, once it was installed, it entered operation, and as with any major project of this type, components are going to need to break in. They're going to need to be operated in the environment where they've been installed. And during the break-in period for such projects, it's not unusual for issues to be identified that are going to require additional adjustment or improvements of installation, improvements to be installed to make sure that everything is operating as it's supposed to. Following the spring refueling outage, as 2020 went on, some of these issues were identified, and the plant team planned a 30-day outage tentatively for December of 2020 to perform the adjustments and improvements necessary for the new turbine control system, including several of the actuator valves. Contingency plan was also developed at that point to look for an opportunity, if an opportunity came up before December 2020 to perform the work, then they would try to move up the the outage if it made sense. And so on November 6th of 2020, some problems were detected with upgraded primary water system flow transmitters. This equipment was part of the turbine control system project, and they received some indication that there could be a problem there, causing the plant to have to enter a forced or unplanned outage at that time. As the investigations were ongoing around the water system flow, the project team looked at the possibility of bringing forward the scope of work that was planned for December 2020 under the idea that if it's possible to go ahead and extend the current outage without having to bring the plant back up, run it for a short time again, and then take it back down for another outage the following month, that could develop some efficiencies and make sense. So the November 6th outage was extended to attend to the required work on the turbine control system. And the overall outage lasted 27 days. They completed the scope on December 3rd, and the plant re-entered service for about a 3-day improvement compared to the original outage scope of work plan.
So overall, how many days in 2020 was Grand Gulf down?
I don't have an exact count on the number of days during the year. Obviously, in a year where we had to take a major outage, the refueling outage in the springtime lasted about 90 days, and that is longer than a regular refueling outage. But a refueling outage always is going to take quite a bit of time because of the scope that's involved in performing that work. So, you know, where we had a situation where we were attempting to make the necessary capital improvements to the plant, we did have a time, we did have to take the plant down in order to do that and perform the original project as well as this follow-up. But I don't have a specific answer to your question of the number of days that the plant was down in 2020 sitting here.
Yeah, I mean, if you could provide us with that information on how many days Grand Gulf was down in 2020. And I know that the company obviously has been making investments in Grand Gulf and millions of dollars. And I would like to hope that because of those investments that we wouldn't be seeing the plant be out as much coming up in 2021. But at the end of the day, eventually there's going to be going to have to be some type of transition out of Grand Gulf. And what does that particular plan look like? And where are you all on trying to figure out next steps? Because unfortunately, Grand Gulf cannot last forever. So what does the planning look like for the next steps beyond Grand Gulf?
Well, Council Member, let me start by saying that Grand Gulf's license was extended through 2044 a few years ago, and today Grand Gulf is an extremely important generator in our portfolio for a number of reasons. And we've talked a lot about the great source of clean energy that nuclear brings to our portfolio and to our customers. From a resource planning standpoint, Grand Gulf is very important because it brings us a significant amount of baseload energy, clean baseload energy, fuel diversity in our portfolio, and all of these are important to us from a resource planning standpoint. As we look down the road to the RCPS that will come to pass here this year, this will continue to be a critical generator for us to be able to provide clean energy in our portfolio and make sure that we can meet the council's goals for achieving lower emissions in our portfolio. As we look down the road, we of course participate in an IRP process every 3 years under the council's rules, and that looks out 20 years. That looks out 20 years down the road, and so as we're working right now through the 2021 IRP, that's going to look at the period of time into the early 2040s, and that still is going to be within the expected life of Grand Gulf as the license goes on. So we are, we always are looking at looking at our portfolio and looking at ways to make sure that we can continue to provide reliable power at the lowest reasonable cost. And now, of course, with the additional consideration of making sure that we can continue to meet the council's climate emissions goals as well as the companies and all of our other stakeholders.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Grand Gulf is certainly important toward meeting those clean energy goals. But like I said, I'm happy that the investment has been put into Grand Gulf. But as I've mentioned, it's not going to last forever. So the planning is going to be key, and keeping the plant as reliable as possible is going to be key, because at the end of the day, the money being spent on upgrades to the facility is being passed on to the ratepayers. So they pay when it's getting fixed, and they also pay more when it's down. So Grand Gulf continues to be a cause of concern for me and for many. But I do appreciate, obviously, the company making significant investments and trying to keep it going. But I get it that it's, more than 20 years out, 2044, as you mentioned. But strategic planning needs to occur now as to what comes next. So,
absolutely, and I would agree, Council Member, that is important, and we will continuously do that. The investments and the strategic plan that we have in place at Grand Gulf are all geared to attempting to improve the performance of the plant and provide the reliability that we need, understanding the critical role that it plays in our portfolio as well as to the city and the council's goals for meeting its emissions goals. So we're on the same page with you there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And by the way, maybe Joe, do you know how many days in 2020 Grand Gulf was down?
Sorry about that. No, Councilor, I cannot provide that exact answer, but we heard that it's probably approaching 120 days with the extended outage and the December outage. I do know that through November, the capacity factor for Grand Gulf was about 50%.
Your last comment, we couldn't hear. What did you say, Joe?
I'm sorry. I do have information that says that the capacity factor for Grand Gulf through November of this year was about 50%. So, that accounts for both the understanding of the downtime and the portion that is not operating at full load.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Councilmember Moreno, this is Jagger Smith. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
I'm just going to fill you in on the information you just asked for. Grand Gulf was down about 149 days in 2020.
149 days in 2020. And how does that compare to previous years? Is that one of the highest years that you all have had as far as being down at Grand Gulf?
Yes, it does. Of course, that was as Mr. Wood said, we take a refueling outage every 2 years, and 2020 was a refueling outage year, and it also coincided with the turbine control system project, which was extensive. So that outage was about 90 days, almost 91 days for the installation of that turbine control system. So that is the greatest bulk of the downtime for the year.
Gotcha. So almost half the year Grand Gulf was out in 2020.
Well, 149 out of 365, whatever that ratio is.
Yep. Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that information.
Certainly.
So then if we could go on to the next slide and to shift gears a bit and to circle back to one of the topics that Councilmember Moreno had brought up a little while ago, the Energy Smart program, and to go ahead and make sure that everyone is aware out there and continue reminding people about the existence of this program. We're in the 11th year of the Energy Smart program now, and this is a critically important program to help customers take control of their bills and reduce their electric usage. And you had already mentioned, Councilmember Moreno, the free energy efficiency assessments. Really, for residential customers, this is going to be kind of the first step along the path, and is provided free, either in person or we found ways to do these virtually during COVID, where we will take a look at your home and determine ways in which customers can lower their usage. And once that assessment is complete, then there are a number of different rebates and incentives that are available for customers to help install measures and reduce their energy usage, either at their homes or their businesses. Obviously, Energy Smart applies to both residential and commercial customers. In customers' homes, we offer rebates for things like tuning up air conditioning systems, providing insulation in the attic, sealing ducts to reduce loss of air. In the commercial space, we do a lot of lighting retrofits, as well as other custom design measures for different types of businesses. Also, we offer demand response programs, which will offer an incentive to customers to reduce their usage during high demand periods. Smart thermostat programs are an emerging way for us to do this, as well as looking at automated demand response for large commercial customers and applications. There's a lot of information out there on Energy Smart. Please visit our website at energysmartnola.info or give us a call to get started, and we can speak to you about your particular situation. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Sandra Diggs-Miller, who will take the next part of the presentation.
Good morning, council members. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Sandra.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. So just to piggyback off what Mr. Wood said, I want to just let the council officers know, in conjunction with the earlier conversation, that we do send out social media posts regarding cold weather that's predicted, energy efficiency tips. We send information to the media. But your point is well taken, Councilmember Moreno. The added layer of maybe email alerts, information about energy efficiency is something that I noted, and I think that would be something important for us to make sure that we are implementing going forward as well. And back to the conversation that you were having with Mr. Gilliard, as we begin to realize the full capabilities of our AMI meters and our ability to be able to notify customers of their impact to their bills, I think that will be an important piece for us going forward. I do think, though, also, as we've had discussions internally, my teams, the regulatory teams, resource planning teams, as we're seeing factors that may impact customers' bill, increase their usage, that's a conversation that we're going to make sure that we're having with you, your advisors, and more importantly, to our customers. So to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to prepare customers, because I do understand the frustration that they may, feel when they get a high bill that they weren't prepared for. So we make sure that we're working together going forward as we are getting these AMI system capabilities in place. But council member, I also think it's important for customers to have the tools at their fingertips to be able to manage and understand their bills as well. That was something that we've heard consistently from customers as we're going to those community meetings, talking about these AMI meters. That was a very attractive feature to our customers, their ability to go in and manage these tools. And as Mr. Gilliard said earlier, there are a number of tools that can assist customers to better understand their specific usage and thus assist them in managing their bills and put them more in control of their energy usage. Customers can log into their My Energy account by desktop, or they can go to the mobile app and they can look for this bill analyzer tool that you see here on the screen. Now, the tool here allows customers to view daily usage. They can look at month-over-month comparisons, including weather impacts, usage impacts, and how those impacts affect their specific utility bills. Seen here in the call-out box, customers can even set billing alerts such that they can be notified of any changes in their bill, to the bill amount, to the usage amount as well. And it's an easy feature, and they can contact us at 1-800-ENERGY. They can go into one of our customer care centers, and we'll be happy to walk them through how to utilize these features. And like I said, look, we understand that higher bills, particularly during the COVID pandemic, create a hardship for our customers. And we're working cooperatively with this council and our customers throughout this pandemic to implement a number of customer relief efforts as shown here on this next slide. So beginning with, we have worked proactively with this council throughout the year in suspending disconnects and waiving any late fees. We've also sent over 400 proactive personalized communications to customers offering flexible payment arrangements in our enhanced customer assistance plan. We're offering all customers up to 12 months on unpaid balances, including enhanced flexibility on our levelized billing programs. And we've expanded eligibility, making these options available to both residential and business customers. And as you all know, some of these options were not available for this period of time to residential, and they weren't available at all to business customers. So we've taken the effort to make sure that we are hearing and meeting the customer's needs. We've created COVID landing pages with details of our options and several other resources available for COVID assistance. Council members, we've had over 84,000 hits to these pages. We've worked with this council to create and support the execution of the City Council Cares Program, helping more than 10,000 customers with approximately $5 million in assistance. We're proactively reaching out to customers who are potentially eligible for LAHEAP assistance, making them aware of that assistance and that it's potentially available for them. And that's so important right now with so many customers in need. And if they qualify for this assistance, we want to help make sure they're connected with the organizations that can assist them in paying their bills. Again, we're working with these local organizations in serving our customers in this new virtual world that we all live in. And I just want this council to know that with LAHEAP and the Power to Care and other charitable resources, we've paid over 18,000 Entergy New Orleans customer bills with more than $6 million. Lastly, we provided specialized assistance to our business customers to help them connect to the COVID resources that are available to them. Council members, it is our goal to assist our customers in every way during these difficult times. We simply ask them to contact us, and we want to continue to partner with you in other community organizations in getting the word out to our customers to contact us. We will work with them. And we just ask them to contact us at 1-800-ENTERGY, or like I said before, they can go into one of our 2 customer care centers for in-person service. And with that being said, I'll hand it back to Mr. Gilliard.
Thank you, Sandra. Hey, so a couple quick questions. So on the Entergy dashboard, on the high bill alerts, can you all send a text alert or an email alert and put it in bill inserts to encourage customers to sign up for this?
We absolutely can, Councilor. In fact, we've sent information, social media. We have sent information to customers to notify them of the new My Entergy. And I do think that there's more that we can do to provide information to customers about how to utilize some of these features. And those some of the things that I'm kicking around, a video, something that will help customers be able to understand and walk them through using these features as well.
I think definitely putting it in bill inserts would be helpful as well. The other thing too that I wanted to ask is, it's kind of just thinking about this, just centered around Energy Smart. Are you all reaching out to, let's say, the top 1,000 residential customers who have really high usage to see if they potentially need Energy Smart assessments? I'm just thinking that could be a proactive measure that, could be sent through some type of email alert. And then you all could also, for those that do sign up for Energy Smart, you could also monitor them to see how their energy usage or efficiency changes, so that you can show just how successful Energy Smart services really are, and then hopefully be able to promote this program even more. Is there anything like that occurring within the company, or any thoughts of that occurring?
and as we're having these discussions internally, yes, some of those discussions actually came up as we're trying to get a handle on the number of customers that may have fallen into the category of 50% more. And so I think that's a very good recommendation in line with some of the discussions that we're having, council member. And that's why I appreciate the conversation and the partnership, because again, you help us be able to expand to help customers even more. And so that is something I'll work with the internal teams to understand customers impacted and how we can partner with the Energy Smart teams to make sure we're directly reaching out to those customers, understanding, so they will understand that that program is available, and also implement some of the other recommendations that you just provided.
Thank you. And I just want to also remind you all that that the information that I'm still going to be looking for is, if it seems that you all are saying that the big issue here is usage. Well, I want to see how last month's usage levels compare to others, and is this the highest that we've had in I don't know how long. The other thing too that I will continue to be requesting is information about how many of your customers had their bills higher this month that were more than 50% of their average bills. So that's the type of data that I'm going to be looking for, because once again, if the conversation is about this big increased usage, well, let me see those numbers to back that all up. That would be really helpful information. I want to turn, real quick, Brian, I forgot to mention this. So the City Council Cares program, and I really want to thank Entergy for partnering with us on this. We've been able to help, and Sandra mentioned, over 10,000 customers receiving, up to $400 in credits towards their Entergy bills. We are still waiting for the storm recovery assessment, Brian, so that we can determine how much of that money can go toward mitigating those pass-through costs of the storm recovery fees. Because whatever is left over, and I know that Councilmember Nguyen is very interested in this as well, we would like to look at reopening Council Cares to see if we can continue to help people with the struggling with high bills. So when do you think we're going to have that final assessment on the numbers for the storm recovery fees?
Oh, right now, can you hear me okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but right now, we've gone a long way to assess all the invoices that we received, and we've come up with a pretty good range of costs with respect to data. And for E&O, we're looking at, it's a pretty high number. I mean, it's between $50 and $60 million. And so, those costs are expected to be substantial. And, we're looking to shore up those numbers and validate them, and we're, undertaking the process of getting them audited, et cetera. But right now, we're confident in that range, the $50 to $60 million range, which obviously is pretty substantial. And we'll be making a filing with the council within the next few months to put those costs in front of the council, and then we can have a discussion about how we recover those costs.
Yeah, because that's the other piece too. It's like we're going to have to work through how we mitigate those pass-through costs. And I know that, we've got some additional storm reserve money that we can use toward that. So, I'll leave that conversation for a later utilities meeting, but I wanted to make sure that people had the heads up and also knew that the council will be working to mitigate those costs as well. It's just, I know that anyone watching this is probably thinking, gosh, it's just one thing after another. But, as I mentioned, this has been the storm recovery fees that has been on our radar, and we have been coming and putting together a plan to try to mitigate those particular increases as much as possible. So, all right, Brian, well, that'll be a meeting that'll be coming up soon if you all are close to finishing up on getting the final number.
Yes, thank you, Councilman.
So with that, I'd like to turn it over to any other council members who may have questions for Entergy.
I have maybe one or two, council member. Madam Chair, I guess Brian and team, to Councilmember Moreno's points, when is the expected timeline for people to be able to get notices or for energy to understand that the usage is increasing for individuals, because I think that's what we're all circling around right now is the technology is there. So when can people get engaged in it?
But one thing, when I think about AMI and the technology as we continue to develop it, and this is, a new thing that we just really started to think about how we can do it, and we started to pilot, programs where, we would go out and proactively message these things to customers. I would expect it to take, 6 months to really understand that technology, hone it, and get it to a point where, it's scalable and we can use it with all of our, customers without hiccups. But, I think when I think about what we can do in the meantime, we need to, as Sandra said, communicate with customers, educate customers with respect to what they can do right now to access My Energy, to access these bill analyzer tools, sign up for these e-alerts or text message alerts that we have available to customers right now. And I think it's always going to be sort of a combination of, us working with customers and then us working with customers to help themselves, because they're always going to be in the best position to understand, hey, how much do I want to pay on my utility bill? What level, of usage do I want to set this alert to alert me when I'm reaching that level? And I think, what we can do right now in the meantime is to better educate customers, to have a more of a communication plan, to get out into the communities and educate customers as to the tools that they can use right now. They can sign up for it today to start taking advantage of those tools. And then in the background, we're going to be working on, those recommendations so that we can be more proactive. And we've started working on it. I just can't provide a firm timeline right now, Councilman.
Well, I guess a couple things to that. Thank you. I mean, if they want it, I would welcome energy coming to neighborhood meetings that are having virtually so people can hear that message. And, it's not just energy doing it, but it's also neighborhood leaders and other people who are on board doing it. And then secondly, I think Councilmember Moreno made a really good point, which is it's not just cold, it's also hot. And so in the summer months, it can get hot really quickly, that May, June, or July heat. And so if we're still in COVID and people are home and they don't realize their usage is up and kids aren't in camp anymore, I think the more that we can let people know to be careful and keep an eye on the usage, what they can do, what programs they can enroll in is incredibly important, given that, we know in the next few months it's going to change the other way pretty drastically.
Yep. Very good points.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other council members want to weigh in? Councilmember?
Yeah, Madam.
Oh, okay. Let me get Councilmember Palmer real quick. I think I saw her raise her hand first, and then you, Councilmember Nguyen, okay?
No problem.
And thank you so much. And thank you, Council President Moreno, for doing this. Thank you all for being here. Just real quick, too, I just want to make sure that we're also pushing out energy efficiency measures as well, right? There's another way of combating all of this, and that is making sure that we have more energy efficient homes. And so I'm hoping that we're doing that as well. And expand. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilman, that's definitely a part of it. Certainly why we included it in our presentation today and to describe some of the benefits that the Energy Smart program provides in terms of home assessments and recommendations, et cetera. I think that also has to be, to Councilmember Moreno's point and your point, it has to be part of the messaging, part of the education, and Councilmember Moreno's idea of a pilot where we, target 1,000 customers is a really good one. We'll take that and noodle on it and try to figure out how we can bring that to scale as well. But no, it's a good thought. It is a major problem in New Orleans, in particular, because we have a very old housing stock. So the more customers taking advantage of our energy efficiency program, the better off we're all going to be.
I would hope, too, that it would be great to look at trying to pilot a program, too, for developers, especially small developers, and trying to incentivize them. We're seeing a huge uptick in residential building and renovations. A lot of people are, are refinancing with these incredibly low interest rates. And if there's a way to incentivize people for energy efficiency measures, I think would be key in terms of people that are also in housing production. And then finally, was there also an increase around the same time for the gas plant? Wasn't there supposed to be a monthly increase as well? Has that also been instituted on these bills? Aaron's nodding. Yes?
Yeah, that increase was in November, council member. And
So on top of everything else, that monthly increase is also hitting our ratepayers. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that increase came in November, and so that would have been on the November and December bill, yes.
Okay. And so, and how much is that additional? I'm sorry, I forget.
Lower $6.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, a little over $6.
A little over $6.
Yes.
All right, and we're looking, okay. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Yes, thank you. To my colleague's point, Brian, I wanted to ask, and I just need some verification. So for educational purpose, so every month billing, it varies from the number of days that's included in that bill, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so so it's not consistent every month. I just wanted to share this so people that are tuning in so they could understand in reference to as they compare from previous month.
That's a very important point, council member. I'll expand on that if you'll indulge me. Each month is going to have a different number of billing days in that particular bill, depending on the billing cycle and depending on when we actually went out and read that meter. And so because, for example, we try to avoid meter reading during the holidays, most of the meter reading in December occurred before the holidays. And so for January, you saw more billing days on that billing month. And so, the question logically is, okay, well, if I have more billing days on January bills, will there be a month where I have, fewer billing days? And that's absolutely also correct. And so you'll see a month, it may not be February, but although February is expected to have fewer billing days, but it may be some month, throughout the year. It may be June or August where you'll see a bill with 25 billing days, for example, because it all evens out at the end. So it does fluctuate. We saw higher billing days in January, but in 1 month throughout the year, at some time later in the year, you're going to see a bill with fewer billing days, and that's going to obviously produce a lower bill for you.
Is that consistent in reference to every year, how you guys do your billing?
Yes. For the past 2 years, we saw January have 35 billing days.
Okay. Is there any way, because I understand what you're saying, but for somebody that are on a fixed income, and as you increase a billing cycle for 1 month, it may set them out of their budget. And so is there any way that we can actually look at averaging out the billing dates so that way people are not alarmed, particularly those that are on a fixed income?
Well, another great point, because right now we actually have a program, and I'll ask Sandra to back me up on this, but we actually have a program where customers can call in and get on what's called a levelized billing program.
Yeah.
And so what that does is that really smooths out your bill throughout the year. And so you'll get one amount, throughout the year. It's based on the average of your usage. And so, for example, in the summer when you normally see bills spike a little bit, you'll continue to see that monthly consistent bill that you would normally get. And I think one of the other things, and I'll turn it over to Sandra to see if she has anything else, but one of the other benefits in this enhanced customer program that we're offering is that we're actually allowing customers to roll into that levelized bill any pass-through amounts. And so if you have a pass-through amount, related to economic hard times, et cetera, you can actually roll that amount into your levelized bill and then pay one steady amount throughout the whole year to minimize some of these peaks and valleys.
Actually, Mr. Gill, y'all did a great job explaining that program. And Councilmember Nguyen, to your point, I will say that this is actually a very popular program with our customers who are on a fixed income, who want to make sure they're getting a consistent bill so they can put that amount into their budget and have it paid consistently. And so I'll be happy to give you or anybody else on the council additional information so that you could give to those customers who are asking those questions, because it is very popular.
I think Councilmember Nguyen, you're frozen. All right, I think we temporarily lost her. Anybody else have questions? Councilmember Brissett.
Madam President, good morning to all of you, and just a few questions on this notification piece. I think it's important, as my colleagues have stated, to alert our residents when we have these spikes in abnormal weather conditions. But Brian or Sandra, can you tell me how will you all assist in notifying particularly our elderly residents? They technology-wise, they may not know relatively how to maneuver from tab to tab to get to a notification settings, 2 or 3 or 4 steps to get to notify themselves, to alert their phones of when a spike may happen. And like most of us on this call, we probably all get Entergy text messages. I'm having a hard time understanding why this can't be implemented immediately. You have cell phone companies who sends out carriers who sends out text messages when your usage gets to you've used 14 megabytes for this month. Why couldn't that usage be correlated to a billing cycle? So I'm just curious about that point. And then I commend the committee's leadership and the chairwoman's leadership. I think the cutoffs should not happen in the moratorium. We did it for a reason. And I think that whenever we get to a point and we discontinue it and not do it, I think we need to feel comfortable and trustworthy that that Entergy will be, of course, working hand in hand with the ratepayer on the bills that people may be in arrear. And so what's going to happen with individuals who have not been caught up on their bills, who have had their bills deferred, may have paid down 2 or 3 or 4 months from 2020, and making sure that as we approach the summer months and warmer months, that they don't get cut off. So that's where I'm coming from.
All right, well, I'm going to ask Sandra to address the question about the elderly, and then I'll respond to the rest of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Brissett. I can tell you that, and that's a point that you have made, that I actually had conversations with. Some of our elderly may not be as computer savvy. I know a lot of our customers do have access to cell phones, and we have actually equipped our agents and individuals in the care centers to be able to walk them through how they access the information on their mobile phones to be able to sign up for these alerts, and they're prepared to do just that. And I think some of the recommendations that Councilmember Moreno provided regarding, bill inserts, because that is one feature I know that our customers in that demographic they do open up their mail, and they will be able to see information. And so I think us just doing a better job partnering with Council on Aging, groups that actually are aware of individuals in this category, and help us disseminate information to them. And I think your point is well taken, and we will definitely make sure that we're implementing those tools and working closer with our elderly customers as well.
Mhm. Even I would also, I know the subject of our next conversation. I see many of our individuals who are our top journalists, whether it's radio, print media, or email, and so partnerships like that gets the message out even more. And so I think just relying on the cell phone is not our entire ratepayer demographic. We have to think about our ratepayers holistically. So I think the other question Brian was going to answer.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Thank you, Sandra.
The question related to, well, why can't you just do proactive alerts now? So we are moving from analog meters where somebody had to actually go out and read the meter, and that's the only way we knew what the customer's usage was, for that particular month. And that happens, when does that happen? That happens after the customer has already used the usage for that month. And so we basically had a historic look at that. Now so all of our systems were designed and wrapped around that type of activity. And so now we're moving to a system where everything is digital. We'll be able to read the meter without actually having to go send somebody out to read the meter. And so we're building a richer data set that's going to allow us, the platform, to change some of our systems to do, some of these things that we've been discussing today. That takes time. AMI has been really just recently fully deployed, and all the communication systems are not fully deployed at this point, but in a very short time frame, everything will be active in New Orleans, and then we can begin to build that richer data set in which to base all of these functionalities on. Then once we get to that point, we have to pilot the program so that, we won't end up with a program that results in a bad customer experience. And so it just takes a little time now that we have the tools necessary to build something like that. It takes a little time to get that up to scale and out to the public. But again, I would just emphasize that it's, the point you raised about the elderly is a very good one. We need to be more proactive and figure out that problem. But right now, customers have tools that they can take advantage of. We need to do a better job of educating, but it's going to have to be a hand-in-hand type of thing where we help customers to understand usage patterns, and also customers get to help themselves in terms of taking more control of that kind of a thing. And then with respect to the disconnects, obviously the company, as I mentioned, in my opening, has been a tremendous partner with the council. We voluntarily suspended disconnects starting in March when no other utility in the country was doing that. We were first out the gate, and we've kept that going for an entire year. We don't want to disconnect anyone, and so that's why we created these enhanced customer programs so that customers can call us and make a payment arrangement, because we have some customers who can pay us and who are just not paying us. And so we want to encourage those customers to call in and pay us. We understand that some customers have hardships, they can't pay us, and we understand that. But for the ones that can't, they really need to call in and make a payment arrangement, because what's going to happen is they'll dig themselves a hole that really they're not going to be able to get out of. And so we don't want that to happen. We want to avoid that. And so, when you look at the arrears balance just keeps growing and it keeps growing. And we're looking at tens of $millions in arrears right now. And so all of that money eventually is going to get spread to the broader customer base. And so, it may eventually result in a rate increase to the broader customer base. And so we have to keep those things in mind. We haven't been opposed to disconnects. We're willing to work with the council. We're willing to work with the New Orleans community. But we just got to strike a fine balance. And I know that's what the council has been really doing for the last year. And we've been, I hope you would think that we've been a solid partner with you.
My last question is, has Entergy New Orleans, what in the most recent COVID relief package, how much money did y'all receive? Any money from the recent COVID relief package?
No, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Brossett. I want to go back to Councilmember Nguyen. She got cut off, and I know she has some follow-up questions. Councilmember Nguyen?
Thank you, Council President. Sorry about that, guys.
I'm sorry.
But I just wanted to follow up. So can you guys hear me? We're good?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So on the pilot program, I think that's a great idea. I just wanted to add in, if you could make sure that your sampling consists of all the districts, and that way it will help us understand in reference to homes in our district as well. So just wanted to add that in reference to the AMI educational workshop. I've already emailed you guys. You guys know that I am, always hosting a workshop in our community. It's already in your email box. I'm hosting a coffee and conversation this on the third Saturday. So would love for you guys to be part of our presentation. This is very important to my district. I've already emailed you about 20 residents that have already contacted my office about overcharged bill. And so I do ask that you look into those matter and continue to look into matter as we send you information about their bill. I think the key thing is really about education. And as you are getting them at the table, I hope that you guys are also running through all the energy efficient programs. Since we have them on the phone, it's a smart way of helping them to understand how do they avoid situation like this. And then lastly, just wanted to revisit on this topic, the Energy Customer Service Center in the East. We talked about a lot of strategy about how to interact with resident. District E holds the largest population in the city of New Orleans. And this is something that I've been working with Entergy since I came into office. I understand that there's been a number of delays, but I want to make sure that this continue to stay as a priority for Entergy, that we look at implementing an Energy Customer Service Center. I think it's also going to help us to allow us to have interaction with your customers in reference to energy efficient and educational workshop. So thank you.
And thank you, council member. I would just assure you that it sounds like we need to do either a virtual tour or some kind of tour, education tour around the city. Again, we do that all the time. COVID is really challenging, but we need to figure out a way to do that. And Sandra's shaking her head, and I know we're going to get that done. And then
my presentation, the workshop is virtual, Brian.
Okay, all right. Well, perfect. And then, we agree with you. The Customer Service Center in New Orleans East is important to us. It is a priority. So I know Sandra's been working on that along with the capital project team. We are underway. We will keep you updated, but I just want to assure you that it is a priority.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Nguyen. Any other council members have any comments? Not seeing any. All right. Aaron, do you want to go to public comment on this?
Yes, we have 20 comments.
All right, let's go to public comment. Thank you.
The first comment is from Anissa McDonald. I'm interested in the Entergy website working correctly so Entergy could receive payments online. I have not felt safe walking into the Entergy building to pay bills. I have been on the website to pay bill and it is not working. Christina Kurd. The recent double increase in Entergy billing is unacceptable and couldn't have come at a worse time when people are already struggling. There must be another resolution in their accounting practices rather than bleeding the public dry. The City Council has a responsibility to the public it serves to come up with a solution other than what is currently being done. Why was there no response to Entergy prior to the new bills being sent out? My electricity bill, Talia Livna. My electricity bill went up $300 without any explanation. When I started to do some digging, I found out that this experience happened to people all over the city without any explanation. When I reached out to Entergy, they said that I just used more electricity. I know that it was cold in January, but not that cold. It seems that Entergy is pulling a SW&B and estimating usage. This is ridiculous and is taking advantage of people thinking they may not know better. I hope that the New Orleans City Council holds Entergy accountable. Jonathan Thomas. Since the implementation of smart meters, Entergy has advertised how these meters will help the consumer. All we have seen is a divisive way to increase our bills based upon when we use our power. New Orleans Entergy customers have significantly more fees on our bills and have no other option for an electricity provider. What measure will you take to make more fair the way our energy is charged for? We pay for fuel adjustment charges and many other fees, which not only pay for what we consume, but also for Entergy's infrastructure and future expenses, and it's not fair to the people of New Orleans. How will you fix this and regain our mislaid trust with Entergy? Mary Gilday. Request that our recent billing issues are addressed, such as auto draft only withdrawing a portion of monthly bills and leaving a balance for the following month. Current billing statement stating an auto draft payment of a certain amount already due for March 3rd and its beginning of February. Bill doubling when some residents were out of state during the holidays. Thank you for allowing us to comment. From Aaron Sinclair. My Entergy bill more than doubled this month. I understand there were a few extenuating circumstances that caused this. However, that understanding does not put any extra coin in my pocket. Please know that this surprise bill that so many New Orleanians received has made it so some of us have to put off buying groceries or gas until next week's paycheck comes. Maria Schneider. Thank you, City Council, for calling this meeting to address the exorbitant bill increases. Most months in summer, my energy bill is between $10 and $30 because I have solar panels. This month, my bill was $183. I paid for solar panels and budget accordingly. I have submitted a request for a meter reread to Entergy, but have not received a reply. It is things like this that make our city not have confidence in civil leadership. It is things like this that make people leave our city and call it corrupt. I am asking that Entergy be held accountable for their expenses and not bill its customers for expenses that are not within control or energy usage. $183 is beyond a slight increase for colder temperatures. Please hold Entergy accountable. Thank you. Sarah Lowenberg. Like many, I received a much higher bill than expected Entergy bill for this January, and I'm frustrated with this unjustified increase. I had solar panels installed several months ago and am currently producing and exporting more energy to the grid than I use. For example, the week of January 11th, 171 exported 65.3 kilowatt hours and imported 34.8 kilowatt hours. I was told that this would drastically reduce my bill. But in January, I was charged $62.72 for just electricity and $126.74 for the full bill. This is almost twice the amount of my December bill, even though my usage was nearly the same. There is no clear reason as to why my charges have increased drastically, and I am deeply concerned about future costs. Asali Divan Ecclesiastes, the Ashe Cultural Arts Center. Both my household and business bills went up like the cost of the Entergy plant from 210 million to 650 million. During this moment of global policy reform, through the lens of social justice, it is time for the city of New Orleans to review and reconsider its relationship with Entergy. How long will the mostly Black residents of our city be required to provide this corporate welfare burdened 18.9% compared to 3.5% in the average US city? We need our elected officials to stand up for us here. Oil money is long, but the arc of the universe is longer. Dr. King reminds us that it bends toward justice. Will each of you help? Alana Moore. Entergy is a monopoly company that exploits this power to absolutely destroy the citizenry of New Orleans. Amid a pandemic, a month before non-payment power shutoffs start, during the coldest month of the year, and in a city employed solely by the shut down service industry. It's disgusting and deplorable and should be penalized by members of the city council. My bill for the last 2 weeks of December was $600. However, I moved out of my apartment on December 11th. Entergy has put the onus on their infrastructural mismanagement on the people, making us pay for power borrowed from another plant due to Entergy's plants breaking down from neglect. We have nothing left to lose, and still these parasitic corporations need more. If City Council does not mandate that Entergy pay for this, the people of New Orleans will get what we are owed by other means. Michelle Jones. My February Entergy bill is nearly triple my December bill. How long are these rate increases going to continue? And when can we expect to return to a normal billing? Marie Claire Seru. Spiking energy prices are a burden that many people cannot bear during this unprecedented public health and economic crisis. It is imperative that City Council find a way to address these spikes in bills in a way that will not burden people who are already financially struggling. George Elizondo. What is the reason for this increase in the January bill? I know this has been a widespread issue all throughout the city. My household has been using the same amount of electricity, and yet the bill for January 2021 came out 3 times more expensive. Lindsay Andrew. In a time when many of the families in our city are struggling due to the pandemic, it's shocking to see such seemingly blatant billing cost increases. People understand that costs go up and that hurricane damages must be paid for. But after seeing not only our billing spike for months when it otherwise wouldn't, and hearing from others that they've encountered the same, it makes customers wonder exactly where the money they are forced to hand over truly ends up. Logan Burke, the Alliance for Affordable Energy. She is a paid representative. Thank you for pulling together this special meeting to find some relief for the people of this city who are breaking under the weight of extreme utility bills. We had a freeze warning last night, and I've received calls from seniors who are afraid to turn on their heat. This is a more horrific scandal than hiring actors to crowd out residents in the interest of shareholders. In good faith, the people of this city have asked this elected body to consider the fine print when Entergy comes in asking for more, and not to blindly assume the utility and your consultants know what's best. We have called for better oversight, more cost-effective solutions, real climate action, and to not be saddled with the cost of power plants that simply extract money from our citizens, whether they run or not. We know these high bills are in large part a result of new gas plant and old nuclear plant and the volatile cost of fossil fuels. But we are also hearing directly from residents with bills that simply don't make sense. We hope there's a simple solution, but we insist you ask the hard questions and be willing to take action to solve this. We are asking for an extended moratorium to help people get through this pandemic safely and to the other side with their health and dignity. We insist that you finally take the problems at Grand Gulf seriously, as we have asked since 2016, and do not assume that this money pit is part of our energy mix for decades to come. We're asking that you conduct a prudence review of the final cost sorry, I lost my place. We are asking that you conduct a prudence review of the final cost of the new gas plant that was allowed to go ahead. We call for scrutiny of gas bills that should have been hedged, but most importantly, we demand you believe the people of the city who have said loud and clear that they cannot bear the burden of business as usual. Please do not trust that Entergy has learned its lesson. This is a corporation that presumes it can continue to hold its regulator hostage with the threats of lawsuits and political influence. Don't prove them right. Dr. Michael Smith, what is the explanation for the increase of my bill from $230 to $350 to $516 over the past 3 months? Have the increases been distributed equally over New Orleans zip codes? Have they been distributed equally to the baseline prior bill? Are you passing responsibility onto those that are less of a shut-off risk? Are you using these customers to cover your operational losses from storm downtime? Dawn Smith, our bill almost doubled despite us not using energy and dealing with a cold house despite record cold temperatures. Tamara Barney, thank you, Councilwoman Moreno, for holding this meeting. My bill nearly tripled last month during a time where I can barely afford my existing budget. I'm not sure why we are shouldering the cost of Entergy shutting down 2 of its plants for routine maintenance, but that sounds like an issue they should pay for, not the customer. Also, thank you so much for the City Council Cares program. If it restarts, please consider opening it up, not just to those who are unemployed, but those who have had their hours cut down, or pay reduced. Thank you. Monique Harden with the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. She is the Director of Policy, the Assistant Director of Policy, I'm sorry. As council members, you have an obligation to make Entergy bills affordable to the people of New Orleans. However, long before the pandemic, the City Council has not adequately addressed the hardship of unaffordable bills for thousands of residents who face service disconnections. New Orleans ranks second among US cities with a large population for the highest electric bills that take 20% or more of low-income household earnings. Data from the US Department of Energy shows that higher income residents pay on average 7% of their income on energy bills, which is recognized as a high energy cost burden. My recommendation is that council members need to begin paying attention to what Entergy is charging on the bills. It's disappointing that none of you attended the Entergy rate case hearing. If you did, you would have witnessed an Entergy executive stating under oath that she did not know what goes in the fixed cost that Entergy puts on our bills. I urge council members to adopt the 5 recommendations put forward by Energy Future New Orleans Coalitions, which are available at efno.org. First, extend the moratorium on utility shutoffs. Commit to reducing energy bill costs. Reconsider whether New Orleans residents and businesses should be forced to pay for a nuclear plant in Mississippi that is out of operation most of the year. Open an official investigation into whether the cost of the Entergy gas plant should balloon from $210 million to more than $650 million, and make low-cost renewable energy available to more New Orleans residents and businesses. One more from Peter D. Gray. It is profoundly unjust that 34,140 NOLA households that make at or below 100% of federal poverty level pay an average of 24% of their total annual income on energy-related bills, citing https www.energy.gov EERE SLSC MAPS lead pool. It is essential that the council implement a comprehensive management audit to determine why costs are so high and what steps are needed to bring justice and equity to the poorest among us. Setting a goal, for example, that no one will pay more than 5% of their income. Reliance on aging and not consistently reliable nuclear plant and fossil fuels for electricity is expensive and ultimately dangerous for our health and environment. A key component of the management audit should be an assessment of Entergy's resistance to embracing a future of renewable resources, which will be much less expensive while protecting our health and climate. Grace Morris from the Sierra Club, but she's not receiving compensation. We pay high energy bills when the city council fails to pay attention. 1, extend the moratorium on electric and gas service shutoffs. 2, commit to reducing New Orleans residents' energy bills. 3, open an official investigation into whether the cost of the Entergy gas plant should balloon from $210 million to more than $650 million. At the time that the city council approved Entergy's new gas plant in New Orleans East, the construction cost was estimated to be $210 million. Beginning in December 2020, Entergy began billing New Orleans residents and businesses for the gas plant that now has a price tag of more than $650 million for construction and financing costs over 30 years that may extend beyond the usefulness of the plant. Council members should investigate the gas plant costs to ensure that Entergy's billing is fair and reasonable. 4, reconsider whether New Orleans residents and businesses should be forced to pay for a nuclear plant in Mississippi that is out of operation most of the year. 5, make low-cost renewable energy available to more New Orleans residents and businesses. Each month, Entergy adds fuel charges to bills. These charges can jump in price for natural gas used to generate electricity at a price that is significantly higher than renewable solar or wind energy. The council should adopt a standard that requires all electricity to be generated from renewable energy by the year 2040, which would bring New Orleans up to the standards established in most parts of the United States to reduce bills and clean up our environment. The council should not allow Entergy to stand in the way of renewable energy. Council member, those are all the comments for this item.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that. All right, council members, I'm going to quickly take up the item number 4 on the agenda, which is the suspension of disconnects and the suspension of late fees. This will direct Entergy New Orleans to continue the suspension of disconnects for non-payment and late fees for residential customers. So with that, I will make a motion to adopt. Can I get a second, please? And Erin, do we have a public comment on this?
You're muted, Erin.
Muted, Erin.
Darn it. Yes, we just have 1 or 2. Give me just a second.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know we only had a couple public comments on this one, and then we will get to our item number 3 on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, from Aaron Sinclair, Entergy should not be allowed to resume disconnections. The pandemic isn't over. People are still without work. The vaccines are coming in slowly. Unemployment insurance has been unreliable for many. People still have to come up with 5 months or more of back rent or mortgage at some point. And in the middle of all of that, in the middle of the coldest months of the year, while children are attending school at home, online, Entergy wants to start disconnecting the power. Do not let Entergy hold all the power. Keep the people of New Orleans safe, dry, and warm at home, at the very least, until this pandemic is over. This is from Brent Newman with Audubon, Louisiana. He is a paid representative. Audubon Delta is the regional office of the National Audubon Society, including the state of Louisiana. We would like to express our support of the resolution suspending disconnects and late fees. Through our participation in the Energy Future New Orleans Coalition and our energy policy throughout the region, we have been supportive of policies and procedures that encourage greater energy efficiency, cleaner energy sources, economic development, and a more equitable approach to energy policy. This resolution will meet those objectives. We commend the council for this action, as well as other forward-thinking, innovative, and holistic management actions undertaken in the past years that are consistent with prudent oversight and regulation of the power utility. We would encourage the council to continue this responsible oversight for the benefit of Orleans Parish residents into all aspects of utility management, operation, and planning processes. The council has plenty of opportunities to build a cleaner, more equitable, and more resilient New Orleans through a more critical and comprehensive approach to the current integrated resource planning, IRP process. through the enactment of the Renewable Portfolio Standard and through an honest and critical assessment of the energy generation portfolio of Entergy and the associated costs for New Orleanians. The Council's regulation of Entergy is intended to serve as proxy for the competitive market in our unique situation where Entergy has a monopoly on customers and services. We ask that the Council assume that role with a thorough and comprehensive eye to all aspects of Entergy's operations, which affect the well-being and daily life of our residents, with an eye to a more efficient, resilient, and effective management of our valuable resources moving. The Council has demonstrated this intent over the past few years, and with people-friendly resolutions such as this one, we commend the Council for this work, and we stand ready to continue working with the Council and City staff on these essential matters. Grace Morris with the Sierra Club submitted the same comment as for the first item. And Council member, those are all of the comments on this agenda item.
Thank you, Erin. Moved and seconded. Council members, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, that resolution moves on to the full council. Erin, I believe the vote was 4-0.
Thank you, Council member.
You're welcome. Okay, let me go now to item number 3. This is a presentation on lack of advertising by utility and telecommunications companies on Black-owned media outlets. So I want to explain to you all what I have been hearing from the community, and I want to add that this is also impacting Latino media outlets as well. I've been hearing a lot of frustration from media outlets that are really out there reaching out to our Black and Latino communities who just feel like they are completely forgotten when it comes to advertising dollars when they are out there, covering the important stories, letting people know information about what's happening with all types of whether it's telecom companies or other types of city affiliated agencies like the airport. They're out there explaining to the public what's happening with all of these different entities. But when it comes to advertising dollars, they get left out when they're the ones who are really doing that deep reach into both the Black and Latino communities in this city. So with that, I had this conversation with Mr. Wendell Pierce, and he wanted to have the opportunity to address this issue before the Utilities Committee. And so I very much welcome that. Mr. Pierce, thank you so much for your patience that you have had today. I know that you've been on really for the entire call, so we really thank you for being with us. And I know that you're going to do a presentation. We've got some other folks who we're very familiar with. I saw I believe Ms. Renette Desjoie Hall was on, Ms. Beverly McKenna, I see her name. I saw Oliver Thomas, I see Jeff Thomas on our list. So we've got some familiar names. And I also have a couple of statements from the heads of a couple of Latino media outlets that I will read once you complete your presentation, Mr. Pierce. So with that, thank you once again so much for your patience and for being with us today.
No, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to thank the members of the committee and other members of the council who are joining us today. For the record, my name is Wendell Pierce. I'm a professional actor and producer, but I come before you today as an owner of Equity Media, LLC, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about. I'm here representing the Black-owned Media Coalition. Its coalition members represented here, Data News Weekly, New Orleans Tribune, the Louisiana Weekly, and Equity Media, WBOK. Together, this coalition and its membership have been providing news and entertainment and information to the New Orleans community for more than 250 years combined. That's legacy. A little brief background. It was a moment of clarity just a few days ago that was illuminating for us. A moment that not only speaks to the immediate issues at hand, but a history of disrespect and indifference that has persisted for many years. And that moment came in a recent interview with at Equity Media and WBOK. Donald Rouse requested to come on our station and speak about his actions in Washington, D.C. at the rally that led to the American insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. his goal was to apologize to the African American community for his participation. That same African American community that has been the source of so much of his success, wealth, and revenue. Now, while for the last 3 decades, Rouse's has repeatedly received the economic benefit and support of our community, they have never done business with the Black-owned media, or many other Black-owned businesses for that matter of fact. He, Mr. Rouse, needs the Black media now. He needs the Black media now for his apology tour, but has never engaged us for the lifetime of his business. Now, with this realization, it was an epiphany. This was the moment that we realized that he was not the only company that practices this hypocrisy. We thrive from your community, but we don't value you enough to speak to you through your media. This was the moment of clarity, like the canary in the mine. It was a signal of a persistent problem that must change or it becomes destructive. And often, as recently as just last week, when organizations are asked about speaking to communities of color, they reference large national companies that have a Black audience, and we all know who they are, but they are not Black owned. However, we view that as a one-way relationship. The economic investment leaves our community and the business advertises to Black people saying, come buy our products. The importance of supporting Black and Latino media is far more complex and substantive than that. Supporting Black and Latino media is a statement that we believe the role that media plays in informing and raising issues of consequence, and it's an important role, and we want to support that, not just come and buy our stuff. Now, the purpose of me attending this meeting today is because I want you to know that we at Equity Media join the Tribune, Data News Weekly, and the Louisiana Weekly as a Black media coalition to challenge all regulated and non-regulated businesses that benefit from our listeners, subscribers, and our community to proactively support the free flow of news and information to communities of color by doing business with our entities. The coalition is requesting that you, the New Orleans City Council, as the regulating authority for the city, encourage, remind, and more importantly, demand that these regulatory entities not only take from our community, but do business and invest in the messaging that is owned and sourced from the Black community. New Orleans is 65% Black. New Orleans is a 65% Black community. And currently, none of your regulated and franchised entities, Entergy, Cox, Sewage and Water Board, RTA, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, none do any business with New Orleans Black and Latino-owned media companies. None. Now, I was very enlightened by joining the meeting early this morning and spending the hours listening to the presentation. It opened my eyes to many things that I didn't know about. The Energy Smart program and the Energy Assessment program, the bill assistance, are very important and were presented in a PowerPoint program, and that was significant. But think of the impact that it would have, instead of a PowerPoint program and a Zoom call with 20 participants, if they advertised on WBOK at this very moment and had 25,000 people listening to that. It's hard for me to believe that a multi-million-dollar company with all the resources and intelligence that they have cannot find a way to communicate with the community that they reap all the benefit from. The fact that so many in our community know nothing about these programs, or that we are still developing a way to communicate to that community, kind of hard to believe for me, especially when you can invest multi-million dollars into a nuclear power plant, into the Grand Gulf Project, but yet you can't find a way to communicate to your customers right here in New Orleans. Let me help you. Invest in Black media. Advertise with us. We have a connection to that community, and maybe we can help you get the word out about your Energy Smart program, about your energy assessment program. We'll take you to their homes and take you into their living rooms immediately. If that presentation was made today, at this very moment, 25,000 people in New Orleans, at the very least, are listening, and tens of thousands of subscribers to the other media coalition members would be reading about it if you advertise with us. Investing in Black-owned businesses stabilizes our neighborhoods, helps us provide good paying jobs. These investments are actually part of a real crime reduction policy. People with good jobs don't smash car windows. The mayor even said famously, "I can stop a bullet with a job." If what I have said already doesn't convince you of the importance of supporting Black and Latino media, just think about this. Freedom of the press was so important to the founding members of our nation that the founding fathers wrote it in the First Amendment. They prioritized its importance. Now, we've seen throughout history how information is skewed to support one view or perspective of even whitewashed history, like our kids' history books continue to do to this day. To fully have a free press, it must be reported from diverse perspectives. And in order for that to happen in 2021, it requires economic partnership and economic cooperation from many of the foundational entities regulated by this body. So our plan today, we are announcing a plan that demands accountability from the business community that serves New Orleans. In March, we will begin a process that informs the Black community and the subscribers and listeners to our coalition that we serve on an industry and listeners that we serve on an industry by industry basis of the companies that are supportive of Black-owned media and businesses who are not. If you make a business decision not to come to us, we will make the business decision to make sure they know what your behavior is. We believe that the social justice movement of the 21st century is economic development. This action is the best interest for the African-American community specifically, and acts as the best interest of the New Orleans community as a whole. If companies can draw revenue out of our community, they can do business with us to bring commerce into it. This is our time. I'm asking the council to hold them accountable. This is a reckoning. Never again will we allow our economic power to be abused. We now will exercise our right of self-determination. So I come before this committee with a request. Our request is for the city council is that you stand with us as citizens, business owners, and stakeholders in this great city. We request that you make it clear to the entities that you regulate that the citizens of New Orleans will no longer support a one-sided relationship in which these businesses take from the community while returning little to nothing to it. We request that you clearly express to your constituents and your regulated companies as to the value of Black-owned media and its position in this community. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Pierce, thank you for your presentation. And I'll just say, speaking for myself here, not only do I stand with you, but we just completed drafting a resolution that speaks to just what you have mentioned today. And I'll be glad to send you a copy of that resolution, and we can also work on specific tweaks that you may want before I introduce it at the full council meeting, which will take place next week. Before I turn it over to my colleagues, I do want to read a couple of statements that I received from individuals who are part of the Latino media that is operating very well in our city and doing some tremendous work. And they wanted to, of course, be part of this conversation as well. This one here is from Anna Maria Beck. She is the director of Viva Nola magazine. She says, when independent community media members see prominent newspaper and digital media outlets asking for donations, we understand the challenges they face. As a bilingual organization, Viva Nola has provided critical, timely information to Louisiana's Spanish-speaking community, especially during COVID updates and hurricane season, including real-time translations of official government communications. It is part of our mission to bridge these communication gaps and to connect communities. We are privileged to have the expertise and the technical resources to make this happen. However, we do not get the financial support required to sustain and grow these efforts. We are in a position to reach a unique, hard-to-reach market. That position is valued when corporations want to use our medium to advance their community outreach efforts. Unfortunately, when allocating advertising budgets, we are overlooked because we are, quote, too small. I'm grateful that Entergy has worked with Viva Nola during Hurricane Preparedness Month. We hope to see more transactions with them and with other corporations and organizations that understand the critical role media plays in our region and the value they get when they advertise to our audiences. I also have a statement from Brenda Murphy, who is the CEO of Jambalaya News Louisiana. She says, the new communication era has caused niche local media rooms like ourselves to struggle to remain competitive and sustainable. In 2020, advertising revenue for Jambalaya News Louisiana's newsroom was down 75%. However, news reporting was at an all-time high. We received no support from large corporations and businesses, nor have we received support from our local government. What we do within our communities is essential. Local journalism is a fundamental tool for marginalized individuals, and without it, we know the Latino community would not be able to assimilate in society as quickly. In 2019, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio signed Executive Order 47, mandating that print and online community media in New York City should now receive at least 50% of the advertising budget of all city agencies, along with the New York City Department of Education, New York City Health and Hospitals, and New York City Housing Authority. Before EO 47, city agencies only spent between 18 and 30%. We state all of this to say that the Latino community faces technology and language barriers to accessing mainstream media. That is where the niche media plays a major role in Louisiana. So those are the two statements that these two prominent journalists and really great leaders of these two organizations wanted me to pass along to the committee, the council really, and to members of the public of the struggles that they're dealing with as well, being left out from financial investments from the major corporations in the city, including those that we have franchise agreements with, or we regulate, or we have different CEAs with. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to any other members of the committee for any comments. I don't believe I see, oh, Councilmember Drew, so go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say two things very quickly in response to Mr. Pierce's comments, and thank Ms. Hall, Ms. McKenna, the Thomases for being here. First is, I wasn't aware about Sewage and Water Board either, and so I'm happy to pass that along directly to them. I think secondly, Councilmember Brissette made a point that's very valid earlier too, which is, I think email and texting and social media, people think is a proxy for communicating for everybody, but it's not. And responsible media and electronic media, digital media, radio, print are still ways that reach thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people here. And so we want to make sure our utilities in communicating messages are using the new technology, but also the tried and true one as well. And that results in two things. One is, I think, the communication that you heard us all say repeatedly today that is needed, but secondly, the point that is being made, which is investment in community and businesses that are owned by people of color is important. So I'm happy to do our part on the public works end too, and report back to you all on what we're told.
And I'd just like to add to that, council member, that all of the members of our coalition not only have the terrestrial radio and newsprint and publications, but we work on all those platforms as well, and social media and technological platforms to get the word out, our websites, our tweets, our Facebook pages, our Instagram pages. So we are a comprehensive media coalition. So the idea that we are not a part of that platform is a misnomer and is a myth that we need to break that messaging about. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize because I wasn't
No,
trying
no,
to-
it's not an attack of anything that you said, but there are people that believe it's only one way or the other when actually we're comprehensive. So I was just pointing that out, that we supply news and we access our subscribers and our listeners on all platforms.
And I think that's where we are, is every platform that's available. If I could use carrier pigeons and whatever else, smoke signals, whatever it takes to get people messages, we want to be able to do that. We want to maximize every ability to do that. And the people who are part of this conversation today are a critical part of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Druso. Anyone else?
Yes,
Seeing
hello,
you. Hey, Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm actually traveling now. Mr. Pierce, thank you so much for the presentation. I heard you loud and clear, but I also want to add, Council President, as you're working on the resolution, I know that you and I worked on the economic development and many missions. And so these boards and commissions also have resources that are taxpayer dollars that we could definitely include into a resolution if that is, if it's to your interest, to really encourage them to utilize our Black-owned business around advertisement. I know for a fact that the New Orleans City Council, we utilize many of these outlets as we share information. And so I think to the next level is to look at city government agency as well. As we are exploring advertisement opportunities, we should also include them.
Councilmember Nguyen, we lost you. But I got the point straight across as soon as you mentioned it, and that is a terrific suggestion. And we're going to loop in your office on other specific boards and commissions. Great suggestion, Councilmember Nguyen. Councilmember Banks, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to chime in on where Cindy was going, she and I have been having these conversations that all of these government-related entities that deal with public dollars ought to be beneficial to all assets and all aspects of the public. So while I'm fine dealing with these private corporations that serve the citizens, we also need to be very intentional that all of these things, from the Superdome to the Convention Center, to the airport, to the Sewage and Water Board, just keep going down the line. Everybody should step up to the table. All of these entities that benefit from public dollars ought to be beneficial to the public. That is unequivocal. So, Wendell, thank you, and all the rest of y'all, thank you for bringing this front, and count me in.
Thank you, Councilmember Banks. Anyone else? Let me see.
I just want to thank them as well for coming. I think it's really important. And I just want to touch, Wendell, on something that you said that I just want to reemphasize is also like the diversity of thought when you talk about what is being published out there. In a time where we have more and more media outlets that are all being conglomerates and that are large, we're losing that diversity of thought across all mediums. And so I think that's also something that we need to discuss, is that a lot of our media is very homogenic and it's not really being translated well across the board. And so I just wanted to underscore that, and why I do think it's very important that we make sure that all different media outlets that have this diversity of thought are supported. So thank you. And I echo what Councilmember Banks said, is something that we've often talked about, is that we do have some of these quasi city-state boards that are tasked with huge amounts of money, especially when it comes to marketing. And those are really venues that we need to look into. And I know this council will definitely be your partner in going after those funding. So thank you.
you. That disparity is glaring, and that's why this is such a seminal moment. That's the thing that brings us to this table and brings us together as a coalition. It is so glaring, and to listen this morning and know that you can make a commitment to one of your regulated entities for 20 plus years, but yet none of them can make a commitment to us for 2 weeks. They have a contract until 2044, and we don't even have a contract until March 1st. So beginning in March, we're going to hold people accountable. We're going to call people to the carpet, not only the public entities that are regulated by you, but the private entities and the private businesses too, like Mr. Rouse's, who can come to us in need, but in a 30-year history of his store, find no time or energy or put any money into the Black media that serves the public that is so beneficial to them. So if we can make a 20-year commitment to Entergy, these companies can make some commitments to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Anyone else? If there's not anyone else, Ms. Spears, you can take us into the comment.
Councilmember, I think Louisiana Weekly and Councilmember Brosette had comments.
Councilmember Brosette, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
That's all right. I'll defer to Ms. Dejois.
Ms. Dejois?
Thank you, Ms. Yeah, that's me.
I know, there you are. I've got so many on my screen. Hey, how you doing, Renee?
This way.
Fine. And forgive me, I was doing other business while you all were doing the earlier part of the meeting. So Wendell, if I'm repeating this, forgive me. But I just want to say that all of the entities that have been mentioned, it's not that they don't know we exist, because we get press releases every day, 2, 3, 4 times a day sometimes, from every single one of them. And so if we are important enough that they seek us out to put their message in the paper for free, they can also spend some advertising dollars, because we got to pay for the ink and we got to pay for the paper. Thank you.
Thanks, Renette. All right. Y'all know I'm not good with the controls up here. So if anybody else wants to say something, please just jump in. Councilmember Brosette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Wendell and the group assembled here, your coalition. Of course, I stand with you all. It should not take a stance like this, as you have stated in your opening. Combined, your companies have expertise in journalism, and y'all have been around for over 200 plus years. The investment should not have to be threatened to be mandated. You all are ratepayers, just like many of the residents around here as well. And you all are trusted media that our residents and constituents rely on for information to allow them to make informed decisions. I again stand with all of you to make sure that everybody could be at the table and get a piece of pie. The days of African-American entities and Latino entities being left out should be no longer. And it's rightfully so, as you stated, come March 1st, call them out. A couple of years ago, we passed first living wage ordinance in the city's history. That only applies to contractors that do business with the city, because they are using taxpayer dollars. These entities like Cox, AT&T, although they are private, they are public utilities that are have ratepayers' dollars involved. And so their dollars should be spent throughout our community. And I just want to thank you again, Madam Chair, for adding this to the agenda, and for you and the coalition. Ms. McKenna, I've had many conversations with, as well as Ms. Renette on this very topic.
Thank you, Councilmember Breffett. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else. So Ms. Spears, now I'll turn it over to you for public comment.
Thank you, Councilmember. We did receive one public comment through the council page, so I'm going to read that, and then we have one public comment on this agenda item. That's okay.
Okay.
So from Sheridan Berman regarding the discussion of January bill increases. We were out of state for November and December, and our bill was still over $100 in large part to the high base rates. January's bill was incredibly high, being over $300, and that's just for the downstairs. We have separate units for the upstairs apartment that have remained off. I have never in my life paid more for heating than cooling, but my January bill looked like something out of the summer. And then on this agenda item from Jeff Thomas, representing think504.com, who is not a paid representative. These businesses have locked the African-American community out of the market. Access to business opportunities should be a part of their agreements in the city. Council members, those are all the public comments.
Thank you so much, Ms. Spears. All right, so Mr. Pierce, we've got more work to do on this. I will be absolutely in touch with you and the rest of the coalition, working with the council to move forward on introducing a resolution on this matter for the 2/11 meeting. So that'll be next Thursday. All right. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Councilmember.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pierce. All right, well, thank you to all of the committee members. I know that we have well, really all the council members, because the full council joined today. So thank you for your patience. It was a good meeting. You know, obviously a lot more to look into with the particular billing issues. And so there'll definitely be more to come on that. And I look forward to receiving the data, additional data that I have requested from Entergy New Orleans. So with that, anyone have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Druso. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Banks. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that looks like 4 ayes and no nays. We are adjourned. Thank you, Ms. Spears.
Thank you, council members.
Good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.